It's although a lot of his stuff, he does a lot of things without having to be nagged or having to be reminded. But there are some things that are on his list that like need to be done that she has to constantly remind him about. She doesn't like the dynamic of feeling like a nag. She doesn't like feeling resentful. She like wants to have a good partnership with her partner and has this like nagging feeling of, or torn, I guess, like internal conflict of, shouldn't I just be grateful? Like,
right.
he does a
And
lot
you
of
were
this.
saying, wasn't it like, yeah, they came from the expectation that their partnership would look a certain way because they both grew up with the same cultural expectations, and they have since stepped away from that.
Yes, they both grew up evangelical Christians and have left the church since then. Yes. So and at that time, renegotiated gender norms. Like, she very specifically points that out.
Yes. Okay. And then soon these two are like, there's going to be a transition where they are both, I think, working full time, right?
Yeah, working full time. She's going to graduate and then they'll both be working full time then.
Okay. When you initially read this one to me before we did this, I had the same thought as you. This is so incredibly relatable. And isn't this like the broad strokes experience of so many of us, which is, hey, we signed up for one thing and it was okay, or it was great and we were really excited. And then the reality or the patterns started and things didn't shake out the way that felt good. So we changed, or we tried to change, and something is off.
Yeah.
Like things have not landed the way that we thought they would land. We get this one a lot. The like, things have really changed and it still feels weird. We also get, and I know like maybe we can talk about this a little bit, but this isn't totally on topic. The you signed up for this, but you signed up for this. And the resistance to change. But I feel like this one is the most common.
I do feel like this one is the most common because I feel we have adjusted, and maybe it would be helpful to talk a little bit about what has changed that dynamic for us and what has helped us move through it instead of staying stuck in it like we were for a long time. But yeah, I think it's very common to find yourself like to have a part, especially when you, like me, are chronically online and you see, and I'm using quotes for people who can't see my hands, like partners who do it all, right? Who are like dream partners, right? Who like, oh, they just get it. Like, there are other couples who just get it, or other partners who just get it. And like, having that comparison kind of, first of all, isn't a real experience. But yeah, I like just wrestling with that. I completely lost my train of thought in the middle of that sentence. I have no way to recover it.
That's, you know what, there's a reason. There are many, many reasons I do not like the well, my husband would never like the whole like the putting on a front of like, here is why I picked a good one. I have a good relationship. And you know what really bothers me is, I'm sure people have sent it to you before, is that fucking song where it's like, my wife is my partner, not my mom. You know what I'm talking about?
What the fuck? No.
It's a song that some guy wrote, and it's a video of him like going around the house, like doing the dishes, cleaning up. And it's supposed to be like,
I get the intent. I get it.
But then I saw another one yesterday. It's been sent to me a couple times. I have not acknowledged it. It's a guy who's like, my wife will never be a married single mom. And it's him like doing a bunch of stuff around the house.
Okay.
Why'd you roll your eyes?
Okay, because and to your point, I don't like this from either side of that partnership.
No.
Like,
no.
I get, okay, what's the reason I have an issue with it is because I, as a neurodivergent.
Hey there, and welcome to Time to Lean, the podcast where you air your dirty laundry and we help you clean up your shit. I'm Crystal Britt.
And I'm Laura Danger. Think of us as your household secret weapon, taking your questions and voicemails to navigate the wild world of gender norms and household dynamics.
We dive headfirst into the nitty-gritty of how broader social issues impact our everyday lives.
So don't be shy. Send us your dirty laundry.
And we'll help you clean up your shit.
This is Time to Lean.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Laura and Crystal. How's everybody? How you doing, audience?
I feel like
Crystal?
I feel like the same as the rest of us. Doing okay. Doing good. I'm trying to think of what I did this week. I in this moment I am good. So it couldn't have been that bad.
Blank slate.
Brain smooth, head empty. I don't know.
So today you had someone wrote in, correct?
Yes, someone DM'd us. I want to summarize it so as to not get super specific. We always like to protect anonymity if it's not specified. But I feel like this is a super common dynamic that you and I hear about a lot, and I think would benefit a wide berth. What is the word I'm looking for?
A breadth.
A breadth of our audience. This will resonate with a lot of people. So in general, this person wrote in, has been partnered since they were in high school, cishet partnership. And as they have grown together, gotten married, they have 4 kids. When the writer went back to school, they implemented fair play. Division of labor looks good on paper. He participates in person. And like part of my personality is that like I both love and hate very clear binaries, right? This is a really good example of where I hate them, where I'm like, I understand that gets clicks, but at the same time, it has a level of I don't know, like arrogance of like here's why we're doing it correctly, or here's how it's a humble brag. Is that a thing, or is that just a community, like from the TV show?
No,
Community?
it's just no.
That's
it's
a zeitgeist term.
Well,
it's a humble brag.
I made a video about some guy recently where it's no shade. It's no jab at these people directly. But being like, you all should break up with your husbands because it's not that hard to support your wife while she's sick. It's, not only is it a brag, but also, when Jack is sick, I have a hard, it's not easy to keep things together while your partner is down.
Yeah.
And if I struggle, I really hope you're not going to tell my husband to divorce me because I have a hard time caring for him and keeping things together while he's down and out. Like if he's got the flu for 2 weeks.
Right. And to be fair, it's because I feel like it's a lot to be saying. It's a lot to be saying for another person. Like my partner would never. It's like, okay, I mean, you're not them, so you don't know that. But also, like when I speak for myself, like it's I mean, kind of tongue in cheek now, but like very much like but for the grace of God go I. Like that would not take me. It would not take me too many steps to get to, I'm not engaging with that or whatever the case may be. It's the othering of people, I guess, of like, oh, well, I would never. Like given a different, given a different life or a different, route, I would be capable of anything. I feel like everybody would. Like I don't know that that's unique. So I don't know. Again, I think that part of that is my neurodivergent brain.
I haven't talked very specifically about like the concept of no more mediocre men in specific, but that whole thing came up because it's like, you under the guise of encouraging men to be better are just patting yourself on the back for doing shit that no one would ever celebrate a woman for doing.
Yes. So, you know what? It's the lack of self-awareness. It's just, it's enough self-awareness where you like, I get it. Like creators that make that kind of content are excited and about what they've learned and want to share with other people. And to be fair, the templates that we have for that same kind of content is that, your wife is your partner, not your mom song kind of stuff. But it's like, okay, but maybe have coffee with another guy and talk about it instead.
Well, I get annoyed. You and I have talked about this too. I get really annoyed when white women make videos where it's just all like, okay, white women, come on, round up, have a seat. We got to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. There's a nuance to it. And I think what it comes down to is like seeing yourself as the model.
Yes. Or holding yourself as the model, being like, well, my wife will never be a married single mom. And it's like, okay.
All of my Black friends are really safe with me. Like,
yeah.
That's a really weird thing to say on a public platform.
Yeah.
I'm the safe man. Look at me. I'm a safe man.
Okay. I'll give you a really good alternative to, and then we can, then I can go back and look at our notes and figure out how we got here. But, but it's a good example of how to do that well are the really funny videos of that guy who makes the videos of like me as a tall white man walking on a trail where mostly women walk in the morning. And he's like, hey, bands off your bodies. And he's like as he walks by, like, or whatever, like, I don't even know if that's one he uses, but like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, no, that's self-aware and funny.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's like, oh, I would just like, I'm just taking up enough space in this margin as an oppressor class in this marginalized space. Here is as much room as I am comfortable taking up because I understand I got the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
It's red flag guy. He gets the assignment. He doesn't make videos about how he doesn't do any of those red flag things. He waves the red flag and goes, oh, buddy. Like that's I feel like that's the difference. They're not holding themselves up as the model. So with that, go ahead.
And we should never pedestalize anyone ever. So
including us.
Yes.
Yeah. Research all the shit we say. And if we contradict ourselves, go ahead and shoot us an email. We would love to learn and address it and talk about it, especially on the internet. Do not put anyone on the internet on a pedestal.
No.
It's yikes. It's yikesies.
Really easy for people to,
how do we get there? What are we talking about?
This good guy, this is the good guy who has changed and is along for the journey and is on board. And to be fair, this person who wrote in didn't say anything about like this person patting themselves on the back in any way. And I think that like that's not necessarily always a thing. Sometimes it's outsiders who are like, oh my gosh, he's so great.
Yeah.
Especially if you come from a culture that's real weird.
Yeah, really exceptional.
Like, yeah, thank you. That's a perfect word for it. So I would love to hear, how have you worked through this? What has been your personal experience with it?
Yeah. So for me, I would guess it's like a twofold situation. Because Ben has been so engaged in figuring out how to solve the issue that is like the mental load that I have been carrying. I mean, we had a birthday party last month and our 11-year-old wanted real specific shit. And I was like, I got too many appointments. And he's like, no, like I'm on the birthday party. You don't need to worry about it. She specifically asked, it was a spa birthday party. This is like rich kid shit. I'm like, are you okay? Where are you getting these ideas? But she had like 3 friends over. She wanted robes for them. Like she was like, I want to do it like it's a spa night. I want little robes for everybody. And I was like, to keep? Anyway, so he was like, I go, she wants robes. And like, that's all. We're not getting food. Like that's just what she wants. So use that money to do that. So he went to Target and was like, hey, I'm not trying to like sent me a text during session. Like, hey, I'm not trying to put this on you. I just want to make sure that this is like within, does this look okay to you? Are you thinking this or more of a hooded robe or an oversized sweatshirt kind of thing? And I was like, oh no, these are both great choices. Either one is great. He knows her style. He knows what, level of softness she looks for and stuff. And so those kinds of things, he's really open to engaging, to trying to figure out like how specifically to do that without, he'll say a lot of times, I was going to ask you this, like he'll do it after the fact. I was going to ask you this and then realized I could just Google it. And I was like, I love you for that. That's great. So within that, there has been a lot of me going, I'm really resentful for you about this, but it's because, he'll say, like with the robe stuff, I can't believe you did this for 10 years without my involvement. Like, I can't believe you did this for 10 years on your own. Like, that must have been really hard. He is in individual therapy to kind of like unpack that stuff. And it's not necessarily to unpack like his wife's mental load. He's in therapy for like being self-aware so that I don't have to teach him that. Right? Like we're paying somebody else, a professional, to teach him what it's like to be self-aware. And I think sometimes, and he's, he learns so much. And I think sometimes that is also the mental load that wives in cishet partnerships or even in queer partnerships, that one partner is just less emotionally aware because that wasn't what was taught in their household. And so the other partner is like that curiosity, that noticing, that we're doing that workshop with Rose Hackman on coming up in a couple weeks. That's completely absent, and one partner is in charge of doing that. So therapy has taught him how to do that, be aware of things that I am not naturally aware of. I have been conditioned to be aware of. And it's the education that he does through reading. I'll read a book and I'm like, hey, I think this really would really help you to understand what this is like for me. And he'll go, okay, great, I'm on it. And I'll tell him, you don't even have to read the book. Here's a podcast about that book that was great. And I think gets the point across. Can we talk about it later? And he's open to that. So I think especially in these situations where the husband is kind of like this good guy who's open to learning, take advantage of that. Like, hey, I don't want you to go to therapy because I think there's something wrong with you. I'm wondering if even couples therapy might be helpful for us to kind of navigate this weird spot, because I don't know what to do with it either. And I don't want to take it out on you. And I don't want to seem ungrateful because I am grateful. And I have all this built up resentment that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point that I want to say even going to couples counseling still sometimes is about like being able to communicate better.
Yeah.
And that is the expectation is still that it's not your type of therapy and not the kind of therapy that is informed on systemic issues and things like that. I think it runs the risk of teaching you how to communicate interpersonally overshadowing the fact that a lot of men are not encouraged to learn on their own when it comes to things that aren't capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, because if we're honest, therapy is driven by capitalism, right? Like there is a whole movement to decolonialize therapy. And coming from a social work background, that was one thing I had to wrestle with. But it's very much, it's exactly like what you're saying. It's also the thing of, let's get you in here. Let's like find out what your goals are. And then we're going to use, Gottman or whatever evidence-based practice to get your goals met and get you out of here. So it's also the thing of like, when we sought a couples therapist last year, I found our therapist. I've got to look him up and read you his profile, because I picked him for his profile, like bio description. And this is what it said. This is the kind of thing that I look for when I look for a couples therapist. His name is Steve. So shout out to Steve. We aren't seeing him anymore, but he was amazing. Okay. So under his profile, his listings are LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit Plus, queer partnerships, racial trauma and minority stress, identity and empowerment, life transitions, relationship and intimacy, CNM, which stands for consensual non-monogamy and poly partnerships, feminist masculinity, career transitions and work-life balance, and systemic oppression. That's just
how'd you find that person? Where'd he come from?
That's a really good question. I mean, he's with Kindman & Co. They are also hiring right now, if you're a therapist listening to this, and they do supervision for associates. But what did I look? You know what? I probably Googled queer therapy, or like queer therapy near me, or queer couples therapy is probably what I Googled. They're not located close to us. Like we had to drive, 45 minutes to an hour to get there. Once every 2 weeks, I think we were going. Anyway, but throw in there couples therapy, systemic oppression. or couples therapist, systemic oppression, couples therapist, feminist masculinity is the best. It didn't say, it said something similar, but it didn't say that last year. That feminist masculinity piece is real specific. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get somebody who's just looking to meet your goals, help you communicate or get your goals. Let's improve communication and maybe make them a list and then get you out the door. Like, this is somebody that I was able to go into and say, hey, I'm in the, I'm knee deep in fair play and domestic labor and domestic equity right now. So that's the lens we're coming from. And he educated himself on that so that when we came in, he was like, cool, so tell me about this, which was great.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's a great way to go. I feel like Googling queer therapy, even if your partnership is cishet, is great because at least my idea is that we should all be queering, and I think you agree. We should all be like queering our relationships, regardless of that word. Like, I think that word is very great to embrace. And I like it because it's like, okay, this person has an awareness of something outside of the bounds of rigid norms.
Yes,
They're
very
informed.
much like, yes. And has an informed practice that specifically go against those rigid norms and continues to do education of themselves to be able to continue that education for themselves. They didn't take a course and then go, cool, we're done. Like, cool, I got it. I'm going to provide therapy now. Right. But yeah,
there's also something to be said. I think there's something to be said about, I love learning about like queerness. The more I learn about queerness, and Dr. Han Run talks about like we love Angela Chen, who wrote Ace. Like, the more I learn about a variety of different kinds of relationships and talk to other people, the more honed in I get on the connection between systemic issues and how they show up in my life. So just like the more perspectives that exist, the more informed someone is on that, I almost feel like I do feel like you are better equipped to pinpoint the issues.
Oh yeah, because you've got a laser sharp focus then on a shared understanding of what you've got, a shared worldview and an understanding of here. You know what? Here's what it is for me as a neurodivergent person. It's the perspective. The first line of his bio. And I listen, Steve Wilson. I don't mean to like hype you up or bloat your ego, but you deserve it. The first sentence of his bio is, I'm here to help you embrace your authenticity and find liberation from stories, patterns, habits, and ways of being that don't fit who you want to be. And so as a neurodivergent person, like what I want is to get help from spaces that are like, cool, is something not working for you? Bitchin', because it's all made up. That sounds great. Like, let's talk about, and to be able to sit with my partner and have discussions toward like our conversations are always safe, but to be in a space where I know I'm going to have the safety to be understood and to have, Steve go, okay, I feel like, Ben, you missed that or didn't hear her, or Crystal, do you hear what he's saying? What is it? Because we used PACT, which I've talked about before. PACT is the modality that Steve used for us in couple sessions. Crystal, what do you notice about his body language? Ben, when you were talking about that, what did you notice Crystal's hands do? What kind of what did you feel coming from her while you were talking about that? That's noticing. That's being curious. That's teaching us how to do those things in real time while we're sitting next to each other. And I don't have the opportunity, because I usually am the one to go, no, I'm done talking about this. I'm all done. I'm gonna shut myself and hide in the bathroom. Like, it's a safe place to do that. So I think it's okay. And again, I think it's more helpful to use that guilt to redirect it and go, you know what? I'm feeling guilty and resentful. And I know that that's it's kind of like the concept we've talked about before about like fighting patriarchy, or like noticing all of these inequities in your home and then sitting down for dinner with the person who represents patriarchy in front of you and being like, I'm so pissed at you. Like, using that opportunity to go, can we have a deeper conversation about this that is a protected hour that's set aside so that we can connect on this? Because I think that you think it's important. I think it's important. And I think we could really do something super powerful with this and be more like intimately connected. I'm not talking about sex. Like it has nothing to do with the amount of times you have sex. Because I know that, like, especially coming from an evangelical background, I feel like that's also some hesitation for some women in cishet partnerships where it's like, well, if we go to couples therapy, I feel like the assumption is going to be they're just going to tell me I need to have sex more. Nope. Go to a queer therapist. They will absolutely not. Chances are, I shouldn't say they won't. Chances are they're not going to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you bring up a really important thing to mention is the reading of the books and the understanding of the theory and the big picture. I have told you this, and I think that I want to talk to the audience directly. Over all of the research that I have done in the last year and a half of writing this book that I'm writing, and all of the interviews and reading through all of these, I have hundreds and hundreds of responses from surveys that I have put out. A recurring theme is exactly what you just said, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be I don't want to be reductive because this is an issue that shows up everywhere. But over and over, I see cis-het partnerships, very many white ones, where, and again, this is like, I'm reducing it down to the finest thing here. Please, like, take this with good intent, okay? When women learn about what is going on in the world, and a lot of women in 2020, especially after, hold on, I got to back this up. I completely back this up.
I'm waiting with bated breath to find, I still don't know what you're going to say.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
All right, I'm backing this up. Okay. Of all of the surveys that I have done in the last year and a half of researching this book, hundreds of answers on surveys, bunch of interviews and emails and sorting through everything, I have found a theme. And the theme is that over the last 4 years, mostly since 2020, when we all went into lockdown, when there were protests in response to Breonna Taylor's death and George Floyd, things like that, people picked up books. They shifted a focus, and there was a moment in time where it was like, oh, change is coming. And it felt really like there was an opportunity. And then it kind of went away. It was not taken, I should say. But there was all of this movement that happened, and people who got on TikTok and people who got on Instagram and started learned more and more and more. And there was this progress that happened. And a lot of women I have found in the responses and everything I've found, there was a break. A lot of women kept going. And a lot of men thought, what the fuck is your deal? What were you on about?
Are you okay?
This is cute. You have joined a book club. You are talking to your friends. Bunch of white women like myself reading bell hooks for the first time. And like, there was this social shift, like a crack that happened. And I think it split households because it was like, okay, now we see right in our face, one of us is doing more domestic labor. One of us had to quit their job. One of us is drowning. And you, another person, are the amount of privilege that you get to keep working your job and keep going while I am drowning. I cannot deny it any longer. And now I have perspective and I need to keep knowing this. And the other person is like, what?
Okay.
And
keep going.
That's all I have. And that is it is a consistent theme that the systemic issues were right in our face, just like a flash of time. And some people have gone back to what it was before that feels safe, or they are in this like flux space, whatever happened from there. I think that was a very widespread experience. And even if you didn't feel it like acutely, or that's not totally what happened, there was a social shift.
Yeah.
I think we're in the middle of one now too.
Yeah.
It feels like something's changing.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's so interesting that you should say that, because I had one of mine and Ben's mutual friends who we've known for years and love absolutely dearly, and who has been like diagnosed ADHD since he was a kid. And when I was like, I have an ADHD diagnosis, he was like, duh. Sent me an article the other day written, excuse me, it was written by the New York Times. What kills me is always the headlines that are like, did the COVID pandemic contribute to the whatever, the COVID pandemic contribute to the like huge boom in ADA diagnoses in women? And it was like, he sent me the article, and the article was great. It was good. And also for me was like, yeah. And so I text messaged, Jake is his name. I text messaged Jake back, and I was like, yeah, motherfucker. Like, the COVID broke women's brains, and we already were trying to compensate too hard that our brains were like, bitch, we're done. I'm so sorry. Like, we could not compensate anymore. So if you add that level of neurodivergence to, oh my God, that feeling of must be nice for you to go to work and not have to see anybody all day except for grown-ups. Like, to have that validated with watching a systemic downfall of that, and watching it come up and be right, like you said, right in front of our faces. In cishet partnerships, men have two choices, right? Men have two choices to either become, on a scale, to become defensive or to lean in to learn, right?
Not be fucking taught every step of the way, though, because that's not open to learning.
No, that's it. That's okay. Here's the thing. If you went to school, which all of us did, you got grades and were allowed to pass certain classes in high school, in junior high and high school and college and beyond. That responsibility is up to you. No one is going to go, well, you could cheat your way through and have someone else do your paper. Domestic life is the same thing. It's not fair for me to go, well, just give me your fucking paper. I'll do it. Right. Or like, I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'm going to just do quietly your part of the paper. It's like, no, hey, this is really important to me because this is me having to remind you of this is directly connected to how connected I am to you. And over a long period of time, that has a contribution to whether or not I would still like to be long-term partnered to you. This is how important it is. And you're right. That break is like, well, we can't unsee it.
No. And I think for me, one of the pieces of awareness, like my personal journey is like pre-pandemic, we were working on domestic labor. Like we had already been dealing with that because I had a baby. I had my second kid in the midst of a horrible, horrible, disastrous year. And I had my second kid. I was laid off. I had to get a new job. And I went back to full time as a parent of two in a job it was bad. I was like, I'm not going to survive this. I will not survive this without help, without figuring out how to do this. So we were on our path with that already. Then throughout the pandemic, we're working on this division of labor, cool. And then there was still the piece of like, I start learning all of these things. Then there's the emotional load piece. And I totally and completely relate to this. It wasn't until both of us got on board fully with learning about these things. And I mean all of it. I mean redlining.
Oh, right.
I mean, education
racism,
policy.
systemic racism within, cities and education and capitalism and hierarchy.
Yep.
Yeah, all of it.
And it was like, there were like moments along the way. I mean, my own getting a diagnosis for my ADHD, my bipolar 2, huge turning point for me. But the reason that happened, I was just telling you before we got on the call, was because of a lack of support at work, not having a routine, the whole world shutting down and prioritizing earning over connection. Like all of those things hit me. All of them contributed to this. And so we both need to commit.
Yeah.
And I from everybody that I've talked to, this is probably my hottest take ever. If you aren't going to learn about that, you're either accepting a level of disconnection that's okay with you, and that's
Yes.
fair. That's
Mhm.
fair.
That is a choice.
But
yeah.
it's going to be there. It's going
Right.
to be there.
Right. And I think, here's the thing. I don't think that is, I like that you said it out loud and in a concise way, because it is a thing of, and Ben and I always say together, like, some things you can't unsee, bro. Like, it's, once you see the systemic racism in the page, like, my kids will come to me with a simple question. I'm like, okay, so in the Jim Crow era, and they're like, Mom, I just asked if we could get Lunchables. And I'm like, no, and there's a reason for that. So sit down. Like, right. Like, it's a very specific way that I live my life. And so, a couple of days ago, here's the other thing, coming from an evangelical Christian background, when this reader and her partner left that church and left that belief system, you become a different version of yourself. You have to, right? I have been 3 or 4 very distinct versions of myself over the course of 20 years, because we started dating in 2004. With that I have been. And a couple of days ago, I went to him and I said, "Hey, are you sure you're good with this? Like, are you sure you like this version of me? Because this version is very, very different than a version I was even 5 years ago." And because he does his own internal work and sees me for who I am, like, because of his work, not because I chose not because, all of those tropes. It's like, no, he was like, yeah, this is who I've always known you to be. This is just a more clarified version of that person. This is not news to me. This is not new to me. I can just see you now physically. Do you know what I mean?
I think, yeah. And like, to bring it back to what the person was writing is like, okay, I still feel like something is missing here, or like maybe I'm just not grateful. And from where I stand, and again, like all this research and interviews and surveys and things, it's not being grateful or not.
No.
And it's not, is this enough change or not? Because there's never going to be a yes or a no or a you're not grateful. I think it's that piece of like, maybe we can assume, maybe we can project that he's not taking on the full understanding in the same way of why this matters and how the commitment to ongoing, like, it has to be ongoing.
Yeah.
So
or the
there's never going to be
partnership. Yeah.
Yes. There's never going to be a point where you're both like, oh, we're fixed. Like
we've arrived.
Now we've got it. Yeah.
100%. I think that's a great point. That's a really great point.
Yeah. It's bigger. It's bigger than, now we have an equal partnership. We have an equal partnership now. It's like we've gained a better understanding of one another. We have stronger communication. We are committed to collaborating, but it's not like we achieved an equal partnership.
Right. Right. And to be fair, I don't know that exists. Is that my hottest take ever? Like,
maybe,
because there are some seasons where it is not an equal partnership because it can't be. Right? Like, there are some seasons where, we're using the Persist app right now to look at our divided hours. His hours this week and for the next couple of weeks are much more heavy mental load wise and time bound task wise. Like, he's much more restricted, but I have a heavier emotional load because I can't take on right now, my mental health cannot handle a heavier mental load or time bound tasks because I've got shit I have to get done in this season. So it's not equal in that way, but it's the openness that both of us have to learning and being available for it to change and open for it to change. And I think I'm assuming that most of the listeners that we have who have partners that are open to like division of labor and fair play, like, what I would challenge you is like, believe in their buy-in enough and trust their buy-in enough to lean into that and ask them if they would go a little bit deeper with you so that you can both have a better understanding of what's going on and how you can be closer. Because I think that's actually what we're asking, and that's why it feels so weird to ask and feels easier to be like, I like feeling guilty just feels more familiar and more comfortable. You don't have to feel guilty for all the work that he's doing. You are grateful. He's grateful for you. You know, like I just feel like you said, it's bigger than that. We have to change the perspective on how to approach it.
Yeah. Something I was trying to find the exact quote in All About Love. Bell Hooks says a couple of things about spiritual growth. And one, like, you can interpret her definitions of love however you want, but one of the, like, her framework for love is an action. It's a nurturing of self and other, and it's learning. It's growth, literal. So if you aren't going to love yourself or someone else enough to grow with them, is that love?
God damn it.
Sorry.
4 people just turned off this podcast.
Sorry.
Thowie.
Really sorry about that.
Thowie, not Thowie. Yeah. And I do think that, I mean, here's the deal. And you and I talked about this a couple of months ago. You know, I feel like everybody reaches a point in their 30s, maybe, where they go, why am I partnered? Like, what, why for did I choose
It's
this?
a good question.
Right. And
good question.
With someone, if you are not partnered with someone who is also interested in learning what you have to learn, or what you're interested in learning, because that's how we grow, through listening and learning, then I think it's okay to extend that invitation and then do what you will with that response.
Right.
Like,
and
again,
you know us. Do what we very, very sincerely mean. Do what you will.
Truly.
Like, no judgment. You don't feel bad or guilty for doing what you need to do and how you need to do it.
Right. And to be clear, the reason Ben went into therapy was because I was in my own individual therapy, and my sweet, sweet therapist said to me, it sounds like you've taken him as far as you can go. Right? Like,
yeah. Is that your work or his work?
Right. And she was like, yeah, it sounds like he has benefited as much as he can from your work with me. And it sounds like it's time for him to do his own work with his own therapist. And so I said, hey, I think I've taken you as far as we can go. Would you mind finding a therapist? And he was like, yeah, I think that's a great idea, because we got to a point where he was like, could you ask Amanda, or should we talk to Amanda about this? And I was like, I'm not bothering Amanda with any more of your problems. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, yeah, let's find your own, and that's okay.
There are lots of books available at the library and from the Libby app, and you can get all of those and podcasts and things. Like, you don't have to see a therapist.
No, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You don't have to do that growth with a therapist only. That is not exclusive to therapy. Yeah, we have, actually, as of today, we have lists, our lists from bookshop.org with our book recommendations. So that's up on the website now under relationship tools. So
thank you, Crystal. Thanks for doing that.
You're so welcome. It's the joy of my life to put together a really well curated podcast website.
I love it.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Well, thank you for whoever wrote that in. That was awesome. Send us all your stuff. We love you.
Thank you guys so much for writing in. As always, you can DM us, you can leave us a voice note, you can email us. Thank you so much for listening and contributing to the podcast. We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Time to Lean. Your questions and stories are what keep us going, so keep those voicemails and messages coming.
Until our next episode, remember that you can always find us on social media and, of course, in your podcast feed. You can also subscribe for $5 a month on Spotify for uninterrupted episodes and bonus content.
We're so grateful for your support. See you next time.